Hello, everyone. Good morning to you, and hope that you guys are doing well and you are in good health. I hope that you have a fantastic week, and happy Sabbath to all my brothers and sisters. All right, all my friends. Happy Sabbath to you. Now, quickly, this morning and from last night, I've been in a sort of what I call a reflective mood. And that mood stems from the fact that every now and then I reflect upon where God has brought me from and where I am now. And I was reflecting upon a Bible text which speaks powerful to me. And I said to myself, I'm going to just basically look up where God has brought me from and where I am. And I know it won't take, this will take many days, but I'm going to try to be as, say if I can what I call cut and paste. But just quickly, let me just basically share this with you. And I think it's Exodus chapter 33 and verse 15. 33 and verse 15. And let me see if I can read it. It says, and this is what Moses, when Moses was speaking to God upon the mountain. Here's what Moses says. Speaking to God, it says, verse 14. God says, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. Then Moses said to God, if your presence does not go with us, do not bring us from here. In other words, Moses, God says, I'm going to go with you. Moses said, God, if you don't go with me, it makes no sense. We go anywhere, okay? Because you are our source of strength. You are the pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night. You are the manna. You are the rain. You are the water. You are everything. And there's nothing. It's make no sense. We go anywhere without you. And I am reminded of what Ellen White says here, and in a very powerful statement. And she says this. She says, in reviewing our past, okay, very, very good. All right, and hi, Jessica. In reviewing our past history, having traveled over every step of advance to our present standing, I can say, praise God, as I have seen what the Lord has wrought. I am filled with astonishment and with confidence in Christ as leader. We have nothing to fear for the future, except we shall forget the way the Lord has led us and his teaching in our past history. I think that's from Counsel to the Church, page 630. Yeah, we have nothing to fear, and I'm going to insert the first pronoun. Right, and I have nothing to fear for the future, except I forget the way the Lord has led me. Yeah, and is teaching in my past history. So I just want to share in a reflective. I grew up in a rural community in St. James, Jamaica. I don't know my mom, so my grandmother took me when I was 2.5 years old to live with her. I was born in Kingston, and she took me to St. James to live with her. At that time, if I'm correct, my grandmother and her husband we were living in a one-room house. I think there were about 6 or 7 of us in that one room, and they worked on the farm, the Lissa property, and which was a large, extensive. I mean, it's about maybe about 4,000, 5,000 acres of banana, coconut, breadfruit. So that was what that the surroundings that we grew up. I wouldn't say my I wouldn't say they were poor, but they were wise in what they do, and they were able to make the best of what they had. And so that's how I grew up. I went to Kensington Basic School. I can remember the first day I went to Kensington Basic School, and then I went to Springfield School. But that's one life. And then I went to Malden. It was Malden Secondary School at that time. So a turning point in my life came when I was in grade nine at Malden High School, which was I considered as a disaster. And I had to run away from home, and it was one of the hardest part of my life. It was very difficult, and I basically had to survive on my own. Maybe about 12 at that time. Fortunately, I went to live with my brother, Herbert, who was living across from the Kensington main road, and fortunately for him, he was in this big house. I think the house has about 6 bedroom, and he was alone there. So apparently the folks that were there, the owner, I think they had let's say use the word migrated to Spanish Town, St. Catherine, and Kingston. So the house was left with him and his guardian. And so I went to live with him, drop out of school, and things were a little bit rough. And I remember clearly, he would always say to me, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness." He would say that, like, nah, that flew over my head, and that went on for days. And I think I went back to school I went back to school the fall semester, and I was placed in a lower grade. It was rough, because I fell out. I fell not just from school, but I fell out of a lot of things. Friday night, I used to go and follow sound system and DJ and all of that. So that sense, that was Friday night, and Herbie will basically be at home, and you know be at home, and I would just go out and Friday night and have fun. Nothing, nothing out of the ordinary anyway. But when I was in 11th grade, another turn came in my life, which I want to focus on. Herbert was always saying that seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So I left Herbert and went to live with my father at that time. Okay, and going to school. So there was this crusade that was being held at the Welcome All Seventh-day Adventist Church. I wouldn't say I was not interested in church. I just say I was not interested in church, and the crusade was going on. The preacher, evangelist, pastor, I think Barros. I'm not sure what's his first name. Pastor Barros was the preacher. And at that time, what drew me was that there were a lot of young people from Springfield, Welcome All, and Kensington who were going to that meeting. And I went. And I think I went a couple nights well. And I think one evening, the Bible worker, I think my brother went. Yeah, I think my brother went, and the Bible workers came to look for him, and they left a card for him to sign. And this smarty, I'm the smarter person. I sign my name on it. And they eventually came back and picked up the card and came looking for me. And they invited me to the meeting, and I sat at the back, wasn't interested in all that. The pastor preached and he preached and he preached and all that. And he made an altar call. And I remember, and many nights he would make this altar call. And, droves of young people would go up. And a lot of young people would go up. So one night, March 20, I think it's 24, 1984. Never forget that day. Night, Sunday. He made the altar call for those who want to get baptized, and I went. I went up, and they have this thing in church where we're calling examining the candidate for baptism, and they a little investigation. And he asked me the question, who gave you permission to get baptized? And I said, nobody. And I think I was a 17, March, but 16 plus. It was not it was 16 plus at that time. Nobody gave me permission. So the pastor did this unthinkable thing. When I say unthinkable, it is about 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. He jumped in his car, and with him and two persons with him, and I call him name Sister Mac and Owie, Carol McCollum and Howard Wilson. They jump in the car, and they drove 1 mile. And remember, these were not the days when car used to drive very fast. 8 o'clock, left the church, going 1 mile up the road, and they turn off, getting on my road, the dark road. There was no light on Tuller Road at that time. And as he made the corner and to come to my grandmother's gate, the light shone on my father. So coincidentally, the group met up at my grandmother's gate, and my grandmother heard the rumbling and came up, and so the pastor stopped the car, and everybody came out. And the pastor introduced himself to my grandmother and my father. And a discussion went on that took place, and they started to talk about me. And I sat there. I can remember I sat on a stone on the roadside, and because it was adult discussion, and they were discussing my life, and I had no part in the discussion. And so my father started crying. My father started crying, and he started saying, well, he's too young. He doesn't know what he's doing. And grandmother, grandmother saying he's too young and all of that. And they went on, the discussion went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I think that we're there for about 45 minutes. The pastor decides, well, he has to go back to the church, because because church is going on there. And he's looked at me and he said, son, what do you say? And I said, yes, I want to get baptized. And they all, we went back in the car and drove off. And unfortunately, my father and my grandmother did not come to the church or to the baptism. And so I got baptized on the 24th, if I'm correct, could be 24th of March, 1984. I was, as I said before, I was still in school at that time. Went back to school. Unfortunately, I completed high school, graduated, didn't do well, and honestly, didn't do well. I can't remember the immortal words of the principal at that time, and it says, look at our certificate and says, this won't help. And honestly, that what was on the paper couldn't help. And after school, there was not much to do. I went to, I went into farming with another schoolmate of mine, and we did well. We were selling callaloo, pop, vegetable at the market. I would go to the market and sell it because I was a hustler. In the summer I would I'd be in Montego Bay selling Kiska pop. That was before I Christian, yeah. I would sell Kiska pop, and then after that, we plant. Go to the market. I would sell callaloo, cabbage, anything that can be, that we plant, we would sell. And a turning point came when I think it was about June '86. I got accepted to go to Portmore Academy. I went to Portmore Academy. I did for construction skill, which I spent 1 year. And it was a difficult time emotionally and physically, because to be honest with you, at that time, I said before, there were factions, and there were fraction, if I could say that. Yeah, myself and my family weren't getting along very well. Yeah, because of incidents, the incident that took place prior to me getting baptized, and it's a struggle, and in reflection of all these things, and God has been good to me, and I had some rough days, and there were days when I remember when I was at Portmore Academy in '86. I couldn't go back to Kensington. One, because the tension was a little bit thick, and I felt homeless. I felt homeless. I felt empty. I feel broken, and life was quite rough for me. I was still a young Christian at that time, but I made it through. I made it through to Portmore Academy. And God has been through that. God has been good. I remember one incident that has etched on my mind. I was in a dorm. I was at the dorm leader at that time, and a message came that the dean of discipline wanted to see me, and I was terrified because it was this disciplinarian that I would say came from, I wouldn't say came from heaven. He didn't come from heaven, rather. And somebody was this disciplinarian that drive fear in almost every trainee on that campus. And he sent to call me, and I put on my clothes and went. And so when I went, when I went there, and I said, "Sir, you sent and called me. I'm here." And he looked at me and said, "No, there's this gentleman over in the corner that is here to see you." And that picture of that person over that room, in that far corner room, he was in a Congal, a light blue jean shirt on a blue jeans and a white sneakers. So that's left in your mind. And it came at a point when I was broke, and I said literally broke. I was broke, and I wanted to go home. I didn't have any money, and he came up to me, introduced himself. I don't remember his name, and he says, "Your friend sent this to you," and he handed me an envelope. And I remember that, my friend Norris Bryan was living at 70 South Mount Avenue, East Orange, New Jersey. Never forget that. And I didn't open the envelope. I took it to the dorm and secretly opened it, and there was $20 December '86. $20. I think at that time, that was about $2, something like that. So that it was quite a great money, and I was ecstatic, because God came through, for me. I think thereafter I went to, God started to guide my life through the ups and downs and the struggle. Um, and I decided, I mean, I take a chance. I mean, I'm a person like this. I used to take risk. I just threw caution to the wind. And I remember 89, I said I wanted to go to VTDI. And I had no money. No, where I'm going. I mean, absolutely nowhere. I don't know where I'm going. But I know I'm going to Kingston. I think at that time, my sister and two of my siblings, three of my siblings, their parent was living in Portmore, and I went to ask them for just a temporary stay because the house was full because it was a 2 bedroom, and the mother was living in one, and the 4 children were living in one room. So I was an extra on it, and it was quite rough. And here another incident that makes an impact on my life where I'd like to share this with you. It was difficult, honestly. When I say it was difficult, and I was there, and things were getting a little bit, uncomfortable. Because they're 5. I mean, they were 4 and now it's 5, and it's difficult. Anyway, and I remember clearly the Sabbath where I felt that this was it. I literally felt that I literally felt that I was going to give up, and I had to go back to Kensington. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I felt broken. I felt that, I can't go on this way. Anyway, I was in Garveymead at that time, and I decided to go to church. I was going to church in Waterford, and so I put on my clothes and I walked hot. I mean, when Portmore is hot. Portmore is hot. There's only 2 places I know in Jamaica that is hot. Is Santa Cruz and Portmore. And so I walked all the way from Garveymead to Waterford. And God has a sense of humor, and because when I went to the church at personal ministry time, the elder, never forget his name, Elder Sterling, stood up and he said that there's a young man here who was looking for somewhere to stay, and if anybody has any place that can help him out, they could talk to me. That was exactly what the announcement was. And when church was over, a couple came to me. That was Brother and Sister Francis, and they came to me and asked me. They introduced themselves to me, and I went to live with them. I went to basically board with them. That was a sense of relief because I now have a place, and they gave me a room. And I was a little bit comfortable. And those days, when I say it was rough, it was rough. When I say it was rough, it was rough. Because in those, I could only eat maybe 1 or 2 meals for the 7th day. And the best meal that I had back then was eating lunch at the church. And that went on for until the completion of my study at VTDI. And I remember sometimes I was going to Kingston. I remember, and it was 10 cents from Waterford Parkway to Downtown or Halfway Tree, and then 5 cents from either Downtown to Papine or from Halfway Tree to Papine. I couldn't afford it. Definitely could afford it. I mean, somebody might say 5 cents. Yeah, 5 cents. I couldn't afford 5 cent. 5 cent. But but God is, but here I am. I survived. I made it through. I made it through because um, I remember clearly prior to going there, I signed a bond, and the government was supposed to cover my expense, $10,000, and the bond was for me to serve the government for I think 2 or 3 years. And unfortunately, I did not get my money. And I remember those days where I used to go to school. I used to have one ice mint for breakfast, one ice mint. We could call it candy. One candy for lunch, one candy for breakfast, candy for lunch, one candy for dinner, and drink ice water. That was it. Nothing else. And through the time, I went when I went through the schooling, and this is amazing how God works again. Throughout the years, for 12 months, I got nothing from the government. Nothing. When I went there, I was weighing 180 something pounds. I was that big. And by June 30th, I was weighing about 110 pounds. I'm not, this is just, weighing 110 pounds. And I remember one day I went to school, and the accountant said to me, Raymond, your check is ready. That's the last day at school. After 12 months in school. 12 months. Starving, hunger. I can tell you what hunger feels like. There are days when I could feel like I could see my intestine protruding because I didn't have anything to eat. That was that rough. And I remember the lady said to me, your check is ready. And I went down to the waterfront where SDC was in charge of the school at that time. And I waited. And the gentleman handed me a check. And to be honest, I have never seen so many zeros on a piece of paper. Never. $10,000 came at the end of a study. God, you have a sense of humor. Yeah, you have a sense of humor, God. You are something else. And and God is just an amazing God. And when I'm reflecting now and look at whatever person I was at Welcome All Seventh-day Adventist Church, where Seventh-day Adventist Church, where life was just beautiful. Church was just awesome. And every time I think about Welcome All Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's like that sort of triggers something in me. That's something that caused me to reflect upon what God has brought me, how God has brought me through. And what my life could have been if I had not gone to that church on that day, or if I had followed my parents and say, well, Pastor, my mama and Papa say you can't, so I'm not going to do it. What if I had done that? I don't know where I would have been, and look at where I am now. And so that caused me to reflect this morning. Those sacred moments at Welcome All Church, and that surround that community, a community of brethren and friends who were there with me and saw me through the best of time, because I was fragile. I was fragile. I think I had ADHD at that time. Sorry. I think I had ADHD at that time. Looking at where I am now, and look at that. Look at the different adjustment disorder, oppositional defiance, oppositional defiance disorder. All of those disorder, I had them. OC, OD, ADD, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I had all of those things. All of those things. Because they're fragile. And so those moments spent there, that was, the years spent there was tremendous. It was a blessing. And but life goes on, and God, as Moses said, God, if you go with me, I will go. I won't leave when you go with me. And I won't say it has been, it has been a smooth road. I won't say it has been, I had days when there was the mixed thoughts and ideation, and all those things was rough. And it has always been God coming through for me. And God has been good. And I look back now, I remember when I was completing my master's degree in education leadership, I thought that, I couldn't make it, And now I reach a point where they call the terminal degree, where I am now a doctoral candidate reading for a PhD in Christian counseling with an emphasis in family behavioral therapy. I look at my life now and I said, God, you have been such an awesome God. I have two beautiful boys. I won't say that, it has been tough, really, really tough, but through it all, like the songwriter says, through it all, I've learned to depend upon Jesus. I've learned to depend upon God. And as Ellen White said, that we have nothing to fear. I have nothing to fear for the future, except as we forget how the Lord has brought me, through, and He has been in my life. So what do I want to say to? I want to say to a mother, I want to say to a father, I want to say to a young person. How you start is not necessarily how you will end. Yeah? You might have great disappointment in your start. Your family might turn their back against you. Your friends may laugh at you, and you want to follow the path that God has set before you. You might have dropped out of school. You might have not done well. You're on the brink of being of giving up. And I like to say to you, right, from my learning experience, don't listen to those thoughts. Don't listen to those thoughts. Okay? Please, don't listen to those thoughts. Have a goal and work towards it. Okay? I have goals, A, B, and C. If A doesn't work, B. If B doesn't work, go to C. But always have a goal in mind. Okay? Number 2, trust in God. Yeah, that's one of my favorite all-time texts. When I was going through the worst, I remember when I was at VTI, the worst part of my life was that, remember Proverbs 3:5-7. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And number three, create a community. Right? Sometimes we want the community to come to us, but we have to create the community, okay, and ensure that people who have an invested interest in your life are in the inner circle, and you keep those persons very close to you. So create a community. Don't wait for a community to be created. You create your community. Okay? Number 4. Never forget where you're coming from. Okay? Never forget where you're coming from. I will never forget where I'm coming from. I'm from Tulla Road. I'm from rural I'm from rural St. James country. Yeah, I grew up not poor, but rough. Yeah, but my grandmother was a disciplinarian. Never forget where you're coming from, and not because you have a master's degree or you live in Florida, New York, Atlanta, Canada, and you are, you head, because you're educated, your head become, you swell, and you are, you're all this. No, no, no. Be humble with your success. Yeah, because listen, I mean, master's degree, PhD, they're good. And I would say, man, like myself, to any encouraging young people, go for it, because the foot of the ladder is too crowded. See if you can climb the ladder, and you can get to the top. And, because that's a part of your goal. But never forget where you're coming from. Never forget the people who are there, who you laugh with and you grow up with, and never to go back and just show your presence to the folks around you. Yeah, you might have made, I mean, some people won't go back because they might have made mistakes. No, no, listen, forget about that. Yes, forget about that. Don't worry about what gone yesterday. Yes, stop worrying about anything and all that. Focus on the now and go back. Physically. I'm not talking about go back mentally, go back physically. Sit down in that place where your life started. Yeah, sit in that church and remember the days when you used to pray 5 or 6 times per day. Yeah, and and all those beautiful moments, that community that was created for you, okay, to ensure that you were nourished, nurtured, yeah, and reflect upon those persons and say thanks to them, yeah, say thanks to them, to all those folks. Thanks for all the people who at one point came in your life, yeah. There are hundreds of people who came in my life for a purpose, so never forget where you're coming from, eh? And number 5, be happy with yourself and with your achievements. Be happy. No one can make you happy. Yes? Let the past be the past. Yeah? The bad memories, let it be the past. Yeah? Bask in the glory. Be happy in your achievement. Yeah? Keep striving. Yeah? Keep moving on. Yeah? And so that's my reflection of where I am coming from, and where God has brought me from. At 17, I gave my life to the Lord, and the question, I mean, would you do it again? In a heartbeat, man. Yeah, and I wish I did it much younger, but God knows best. And so this morning I just wanted to share that with you and to say, that it's rough, yes, but look at it, yeah. You can imagine Dr. Raymond George Hilton, PhD. Wow, is that sounds good, eh? That sounds good, yeah. And that's the fruit of my labor, That's fruit of my labor, And so that's why I want to work with young people, children, and that's why I chose family behavioral therapy, because I want to have an impact on somebody's life. I want to help somebody, to guide somebody in a pathway to success. I want to help parents. I want to help, young people. I want to help. I am the person who you can call on. I'm the person that you can talk to, and all that. So I trust and hope that this presentation will help somebody. It will be on Facebook. It will be on YouTube. You can find me there. I have a YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, share. Share this with somebody. Share it with somebody. So as I said before, I'm just cutting and paste. But I just want to share somebody that that was where I'm coming from, and where God has brought me from. And I want to thank you guys for the moment I can share with you. Yeah, and just remember, that never forget where you're coming from. As Ellen White says, we have nothing to fear for the future, except as we forget what the Lord has led us in the past and His doing in our history. And I thank God for where He has brought me from. And thank you, welcome out to all the friends and all the family and all the brethren at Welcome Out Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for those who know me and those who know where I'm coming from. Thank God. And may God continue to richly bless you. I hope and trust that this will help somebody. All right. Good morning, good day, and have a pleasant one. Bye-bye.